Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. And welcome to our webinar entitled Sprinkle the Clean Code Magic in Your JavaScript Projects, where we invite you to learn key concepts and best practices for clean JavaScript code. I'm Andrew Osborne, your moderator for this webinar, which will be presented by my colleague Gabriel Vivas. Please allow me to quickly go over some essential housekeeping points as we begin. The session will last 30 minutes and include a Q&A at the end. You are invited to submit your questions via the Q&A box in Zoom, not the chat box. We will have two panelists joining us, Joe Tingsan Charlie from our services team and Yasin Kamoun from our languages team. They are tasked with answering as many of your questions live during the webinar, so please do send them through. The webinar will be recorded and we will send out a link via email in the next few days. Finally, at the end of this webinar, we will send out a short survey. It will pop up automatically. We consider your feedback to be a gift. Thank you in advance for your participation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you today's presenter, Gabriel Vivas. Gabriel is a product manager at Sonar and dedicated to the JavaScript ecosystem. He's worked as an engineer in cybersecurity and public safety for Airbus Defence and Space and Vinci Energies in France. He started coding in the early 2000s with the emerging web platform and hasn't stopped ever since. Gabriel, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everyone. So let's start with a quote. Programs must be written for people to read and only incidentally for machines to execute. So even if you're really passionate about machines, you have to acknowledge there is some truth in this phrase. We create programming languages that resemble us because we are the main users, not the machine. This quote comes from a book, the Wizard book, as we call it, and you may know about it. It was first used at MIT to teach computer science in the 80s and 90s, and it has a JavaScript edition that came out this very year. You can read it online if you want. You will receive all the resources, so you don't have to look it up right now. Stay with me. Anyway, the Wizard book has a very cool metaphor that compares programmers to magicians. That's the cover of the book. And I'll just read a passage for you. Software is like a sorcerer's idea of a spirit. It does not have a physical presence, but it is very real. It can perform intellectual work and answer questions. It can affect the physical world, like moving a robot arm, for example, or driving an airplane. Programmers conjure these spirits with the source code. Arcane and esoteric symbols that remain obscure to the uninitiated. Even small errors can have complex and unanticipated consequences. So don't take this too seriously. However, do keep in mind those two aspects of the spell that you write, the source code, and the spirit in the machine, which is the process that is created. Why care about clean code? So maybe you have the experience of working in a terrible code base. If you do, you know that bad code can affect your motivation. It can slow you down and bring you down. So look at this example. This is not minified code. This is actual code that somebody wrote as a gift to the world. And this might be an extreme example, of course, but imagine you actually need to get in there and change things. How do you know if you are not breaking it? What happens when all the code base looks like this? What to do when, in that case, when all the code bases looks like this? So it might take you multiple years to try to fix that, and even if you attempt to do it. And then there can be more subtle cases. So if you're very used to Node.js, you will see things immediately, like the sync that is being used. It's not asynchronous code. So it's blocking the loop. That's not a good idea. But also, did you notice the taint vulnerability that it's there? Yeah, it allows path injection, and it makes this code vulnerable to directory travel attacks, which is a whole thing. And what about this one? This is React code, just hopefully a simple component. It looks innocent enough, but did you see the infinite loop? Yep, it is there somewhere. And I mean, that's weird. But so let's talk about the power of clean code. We feel clean code can help you grow your skills. It's also great for your work environment. Most of your code is actually your work environment. And it can also let you focus on solving interesting challenges, you know? So developers thrive with clean code. You can look at it from the viewpoint of personal fulfillment. You really want to pursue mastery. You want to be a master of your trade or your tools, or just enjoy your work or elevate our profession. And that's fulfillment. Or you can look at it as ownership. So it is your code. Code is our thing, and it is ours to solve, and ultimately our responsibility. And you could also look at it as professionalism. So you want to do your work right. You want end users to be happy with the software. You want the software to be healthy, and that hopefully leads to a healthier business. So the point is, clean code creates a virtuous circle that ultimately leads to good results for everyone. So what is clean code? So there was a previous webinar about this, and I don't want to go too much into details. So just a quick reminder. Clean code is code that is secure, it is of highest quality, and execute flawlessly. So it is about all of your code, doesn't matter if it's for your tests or your scripts or your infrastructure, and it can have many properties, secure, maintainable, and that's all of clean code. So remember these two realities from the wizard story, their source code and the resulting program. They have these two aspects that relate to them. So clean code has to remain easy to change, so that it's all about maintainability. You need to be able to understand it and improve it reliably, but also in a cost-effective way and a time-effective way. And then it has to behave as required. So essentially, we do software for a reason. It needs to be valuable for somebody, solve problems. That's why we do it. And we saw all of those behavioral attributes, so reliable, secure. And essentially, you don't want your code to create more problems than it solves. With that definition, I'll hand it over to Andrew for a quick poll.
Thanks, Gabriel. So I'm going to launch a quick poll now. If you want to show the question, Gabriel. So would your current code base qualify as clean code? I'll give you a moment to vote.
Yeah, so the results are coming in.
They are. And there's a lot of attendees, so a lot of results. I'll just give it a couple more minutes as people push the button. They're still coming in quite quick, so I'll just give it a couple more minutes, seconds, I should say. Okay, slowing down. So I'm going to end the poll.
Great.
Now, and I will share the results. So, interesting. I think the no's have it, but, you know, evenly split between yes and I don't know in second place, I would say. Back to you, Gab.
Great. Okay, so yeah, it is a majority of no's. And yeah, that's sort of expected because, of course, it's not that simple. It's easy to talk about clean code and a whole different thing to own a realistically clean code base. And if you have watched this movie, you know that magic does not come without pain. So this leads us to challenges we face. And regarding clean code, there are two big areas where we have challenges as developers. The first one is that industry practices are not evenly applied. Not everybody is doing what they should be doing. But also, even if you do everything that we call a best practice in the industry, there are still limitations. So we'll quickly go over some of the best practices. I mean, you should hopefully know already this. If you don't, Google it and get better at it. But hopefully you're doing automated testing, peer reviews, you're using maybe Jest, Mocha, you know, you're also doing coverage with Jest or C8 or Istanbul. automated refactoring tools in your IDE with VS Code maybe. Hopefully you're doing static analysis with Eslint or with Sonar, formatting your code with Prettier, this kind of things. So I won't go into them too much. There are two good resources that I want to share with you. The first one is a book called Refactoring by Martin Fowler. The original version had examples in Java, and it came out in the 90s. But this edition came out not that long ago, and it has examples in JavaScript. So I really recommend that one if you are not doing refactoring in a very methodical way. And this second one is a talk by the author of Cucumber, which is a test library. And it will sort of change the way you see tests. So I really recommend those. So let's go back to this idea of some limitations. So even if you are doing all your best industry practices, it's still sort of hard because what's good enough code? It's hard to say. And even if you know what is good code, it's hard to find the time to do it. And your code base might be too big to change, and when a code base is very old, it has a lot of inertia, and it's hard to change. And different skills in your team might also not help that much. So the code you write today might be the code that your colleague wants to change tomorrow. So how to clean code? This is the real deal, the core of what we want to share. So if you are not paying attention, this is the good part. Oops, that's not the slide. So first, you need to have a high standard for your code. So here in this example, we have a Sonar Cloud result, and it helps you agree on what is a healthy code base, so you have a measure somewhere, and it allows you to see as you are improving or getting worse. And it will help you raise the bar, as we will see. So this is an example, and hopefully you're saying, okay, that's very good, but what happens if it raises like thousands of issues? And that's a great question, and just before I answer it, I want to show you how you could get your own sort of kind of standard with tools you probably already use and know. So if you have Eslint or Typescript or Prettier, you can sort of tie up a command and scan your code. So we do have an Eslint plugin that you can use, and it will raise like a lot of issues. And you could also use Typescript, even if you're coding in regular vanilla JavaScript as a command line. And you could also use Prettier in the command line to raise issues. But then again, as we said, that will bring you a lot of issues. So that is the reason we think we should focus on new code. So right here, I have 19,000 vulnerabilities or maintainability issues, sorry. And that's way too much. Nobody can realistically fix that in any reasonable amount of time. So what we think helps is focusing on new code. Here's a magic animation. Did you see all those issues disappear? So the idea is that you set this high quality standard and you apply it to the new code you put into the code base. At Sonar, we call this a quality gate. So you enforce it in code reviews, in the CI, on tests, and it will allow you to stop bad code getting into the code base. And yeah, again, hopefully you're still thinking about all of those issues, what happens with them. We'll talk about it. But just before that, I want to show you one way to get your new code, to focus on your new code. So imagine you had this script, ad hoc script, bash script that you can set up as a Git hook. So it will essentially look for the staged files and only run the scripts on these staged files. So not all the code base, only the files you changed. And that is a first step. So that way you can improve the issues you have in the code you changed or you added, and not on all of the issues. So that gives you some focus. There's also lint stage, then you can use for the same purpose. It does essentially the same thing as the ugly bash script. There you go. So what about my old code? So this was the question before. So that's nice and all. My new code is going to look better, but all of the old code, where is it going? Well, it turns out that you might not need to care too much about it because source code is constantly being rewritten. That is just how it works. As you write your new features, you end up changing the old code too. And what we call new code is the code that you are adding and also the code that you're changing as a side effect of your normal work. So here in this graph, you can see the percentage of lines that survives 5 years for different projects. And it's important to notice that this includes only old code that was introduced, how long it lives. So here is an example for Angular. This is this line. And the takeoff is that after 2 years, they essentially changed, replaced, rewrote, or added up to 80% of new code. And that's not unique to Angular. Of course, the rhythm will change between code bases, but here is Node.js. And for them, it took 5 years to essentially rewrite 80% of their code base. So the way you can see this is that if you had a quality gate and you are ensuring your new code is clean, then 80% of your code would already be clean. And you can actually try this on your own code base. We will send you all the links, by the way. There was this beautiful article called Half-Life of Code and the Ship of Theseus. And it tells this metaphor of the ship of Theseus. It was being repaired constantly. So they were changing the wood, the boards all the time. And at some point, you change all the boards. So is it the same ship or not? I mean, that's a philosophical question. But for sure, for code, it means that if you're changing a lot of the code, you need to focus on the new parts to improving them. And if there is some code then that is still there after 5 years, I mean, maybe leave it alone because it's not bothering you, it doesn't have bugs, so you can just leave it alone, not touch it. And that's what we call clean as you code. It's very simple, only 2 steps. You set up a quality gate on new code. So this is where you plug the high standard of quality, and you focus only on the new code. And don't release unless it's green. If you have just focus on fixing the issues on the new code. And progressively, you will clean your code base. So here we're showing you like an industry average, which is after 5 years, half of your code base would be clean. But as you saw with the examples, this is very, very conservative estimate. It can be a lot faster. So set yourself a high standard, focus on new code, and the old code will shrink. That's the magic. And then you will get a lot of benefits because you get to own quality as a developer. It's yours. It's not the manager's problem. It's not Q&A. It's not somebody else. It's you. And it's very simple, powerful approach. There's no big efforts, no added risk, and no extra steps. Well, there's maybe one thing you could do, one extra step to go further, and learn as you code, we call it. You may know the Stack Overflow survey from this year. It came out with 68% of developers writing JavaScript. I mean, at least the ones that responded to the survey. So that's a lot of developers writing JavaScript. And also, there's this huge number of downloads per month from NPM. So there's a lot of people using JavaScript out there, and it's changing very fast. So you might as well learn a few things while you're fixing your code. This is why we give you this possibility to learn about why there are these issues coming up. And you can see a detailed description in depth with code examples, with the reasoning behind it. So you can actually learn in the context of your code. So the idea is to learn from your mistakes in the context of your code at the moment you care about it and right there in your tools. So it's not some random tutorial on the internet, it's right there on your code. And the benefit is that you will eventually raise the bar in your team. If everybody is doing this, they will learn a lot of stuff and your code gets better, but they get better too. And you also invest in yourself every day. You get better, your code will get better at the source. So for some more details, you can dig deeper. We do provide this website where we list every rule that we support with explanations and a lot of information. So again, that will be part of the links that you get at the end of the webinar. And we also have a blog series coming out very soon. The first installment is coming out tomorrow. And there you could learn about React mistakes that happen often, that produce bugs. So some key takeaways. First, developers thrive with clean code. That is like the best environment to work in. Clean code means code that is secure, of the highest quality, and executes flawlessly. And the clean as you code practice that we do at Sonar will help you get there. And just remember that only developers can make a significant impact on code. I like that one. Only developers can make a significant impact on code. So yeah, this is what we wanted to share with you, a new methodology that we call clean as you code and learn as you code. You can look at it as a new best practice for writing JavaScript and TypeScript. And the tools are there to help you, but ultimately is the approach that will make the difference. So with that said, I will hand it over to you, Andrew, for the Q&A.
Thanks, Gabriel. That was great. As we move now into the time of Q&A, and I just quickly gather the questions together. I've just put on the screen some upcoming webinars so you can look at those. But the first question, Gabriel, if I may, is how does the Sonar solution compare to Eslint or GitHub code scanning?
That's a great question. We actually integrate with them, with Eslint and with GitHub code scanning, and we build upon them. So both Eslint and GitHub code scanning do static analysis, which we also do. But actually, we use Eslint internally, and we ship all of the core rules for Eslint, I think. We also do taint analysis, for security, and advanced bug detection, which currently are not possible with Eslint. And we also have integration, so with GitHub code scanning, and you can actually run your project, scan your project with Sonar in GitHub, with GitHub Actions, for example. And yeah, I think you still get a better experience with Sonar Cloud or Sonar Cube, but you can use both if you want. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question. And excuse, I'll read it out literally. Like the Grammarly tool, which corrects the grammar, does the Sonar tool correct our code with design principles?
Ooh, that's a great question. So
yeah,
we do have an integration with your IDE. So it's a free plugin that you can download if you're using VS Code or JetBrains or whatever you're using. It's called Sonar Lint. And it will do exactly this idea of highlighting the code that has issues. And it will also actually allow you to do quick fixes right on the spot. And you can read more upon each problem if you're interested right there in your IDE. So as for the design part of the question, there are some rules that will implicitly target design, like the number of parameters or things like this. These are some aspects of design. So yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go through these quickly. There's quite a few questions. Which JavaScript, TypeScript frameworks do you support?
Oh, yeah, great question too. So I want to say sort of all of them or most of them. If you're definitely using one of the major JavaScript frameworks, React, Angular, Vue, we definitely support it, jQuery. And the reason is that essentially we look at the code and all of that is real code, just JavaScript. For the parts that are specific to the language, we do some stuff like for Vue, for Angular, and for React. We do a lot for React. So yeah, probably your framework is supported. So try it out.
Okay. Next question, would using ESLint and other different formatting tools qualify as writing a clean code?
Well, I think it does fit into the part of the definition. So we gave a definition and we think software needs to work and it needs to be maintainable. So definitely, the format is a part of maintainability, so you can understand it more easily. And, bugs, if you find bugs in there that Sonar can find or even ESLint can find, those are definitely parts of clean code. Yeah, it's not the only part of the story, but that's definitely part of it. Yeah.
Okay. Different style of question now. How do I get started today with clean code?
Good question. I mean, download Sonarlint, install it right away in your IDE. That's one quick way to get started. Um, uh, yeah, I mean, you could also try it out Sonar Cloud. If you have its open source code, you can scan it for free. And if you want to try it in your computer or in your company, you can download Sonar Cube. It's open source. So, yeah.
Okay. Another question. Can it, I guess it being Sonar, can it scan my language? And the person's put in Java,
Yeah,
actually.
well, yeah, Java definitely. Yeah. So Sonar works with over 30 of the most popular languages. So definitely, if you're using Java, it's covered. C Sharp, Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, JSX, CSS, HTML, like anything big, it's covered. And we even have some old-time languages like COBOL or things like that. We will get you a link. We can note that to get you a link with the list of languages on the website.
Yeah. Next question. Does Sonar Cube do semantic analysis on JavaScript documents or only pattern analysis like semgrep? If so, is it context insensitive or not?
Wow, yeah, that's a great question. So we're not doing like regexes on your code. I mean, if you crafted this question, I imagine you understand. Like, for example, Eslint is working on the abstract syntax tree. We do that, and we also work in the call graph, and we go a little bit further, especially for the security and taint analysis and the advanced bug detection. And it is we go across files. We do, I mean, a lot of technical stuff. So I think the answer is yes, mostly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Next question. Can Sonar detect error or errors with React effect?
Yes, that's yeah. I mean, that looks like a staged question.
It's not.
Definitely yes. You can tomorrow we're actually releasing the first installment of a blog series about bugs in React, and yes, that includes hooks and the use effect as part of that. Yeah.
Cool. Next question. I use a local database with Sonar Scanner and Sonar Cube, but the quality gate is often red even when no new issues are logged. How does this work? Do I have to use the GitHub hook? That's difficult to say, as explained.
I don't know. That sounds like a support question. We do
Okay.
have a community where you can get help. It's community.sonarsource.com, and I'm sure they can help you there. You can post logs, of exactly the problem you're having,
Cool.
just so that you get help. Yeah.
Okay. Still going to try and squeeze in a couple more questions. Will Sonar work with my tool and my setup? It doesn't say which tool or which setup, but
Well, I want to say yes. If you're using common tools, it will work. So for IDEs, if you're using VS Code, IntelliJ, Visual Studio, that will work. If you're for DevOps platform, I think we support GitHub, Azure, Bitbucket, and yeah. I mean, the general answer is yes. And if it doesn't, please tell us in the community forum. It would be great to know.
okay. What's the difference? Rolling into the next question. Sorry, Gabriel, I'm going fast as I can. What's the difference between all of the Sonar products? Wow, there you go. That's a difficult one. Well, actually not a difficult one.
Well, yeah, we have three big products, so you might have heard of. So it's Sonarlint works in your code editor. Sonar Cube is the one you run in your own server or a Docker container. These are open source. You can download them for free. And then there's Sonar Cloud, which works on somebody else's server. And it's free to use for open source, but you do have to pay a subscription if you want your private code to be scanned. Yeah.
Gabriel, thank you. That is all the time we have for questions. I appreciate you running through those as quickly as I could pose them to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for posing questions. Thanks for attending. Sorry we didn't get time to cover them all live today, but we will respond back individually to each after this session. Please do visit sonarsource.com for further information on how to clean as you code. And as Gabriel mentioned, he's got a blog coming out tomorrow, which talks about common React mistakes and how to avoid them. Thanks again for providing your feedback in the survey that will pop up shortly, and we hope to see you all soon. Thank you, Gabriel, and thanks for attending.
Thank you all.